It's exciting to have you here. How you been?
Very often when I talk to people, they talk about the same issues, the same problems.
Oh.
It's okay to say no.
Yeah. What's your take on dating apps?
Very small percentage of people actually uses dating apps. It's the paradox of choice, right? The more
That's
options you have, the less you will be satisfied with your choice.
And what role is social media playing then if it's not letting people really express things which are bringing them joy?
It's obvious that social media promotes narcissism. We're all weird. You cannot have it all at one period of time.
What are your thoughts on doomscrolling?
Doomscrolling, it's a very bad habit.
Okay, Julia, it's exciting to have you here. How you been?
Yeah, pretty good.
Pretty good?
Yeah.
So how's the week going?
A bit crazy and chaotic as usual.
With the thesis and everything coming up?
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
I hope you do good in that.
Me too.
Okay. So I wanna start the discussion with with you being self-help and kind of like a language coach. So what are some of the main personal challenges that you see people approach you for?
Very often when I talk to people, they talk about the same issues, the same problems.
Okay.
But when it comes to the core, I see two tendencies. The first one, the challenge of understanding what do you want from this life? Do I want to work this job? Do I want to choose this career path? Do I want to be with this person? And so on. And I guess this becomes problematic because very often I see people compare themselves to others.
Yeah.
That come from different backgrounds, that come from different area, even if it's the same country, but different areas.
Yeah.
And it's already a very different lifestyle. And it's been highlighted, it's been amplified, especially with the internet and social media. I can see people, and even myself, comparing myself to bloggers, to people who got million at 21.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting here and I feel not enough.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense.
But this is, I would say, bad thing that we need to live with.
Yeah. So, but what are the main personal challenges you would see? Is it career growth? People don't know what they want? What are the three top things that, people just they're hey, these are the things that we really want your help with?
Usually people want to find happiness. They just feel that something is off.
Okay.
And they cannot exactly put a finger in it.
Yeah.
Why? Who?
Yeah.
And when you start questioning stuff, so coaching is a technique when basically the coach does not the coach asks only questions.
Yeah.
We do not give answers, ideally. And in this case, you can see people being lost, not knowing what do I want.
Yeah.
Saying something is off. But when you start asking, well, I don't know. Okay, let's go with job. Why did you choose this job? Were you excited about this job, or was family, was partner? Yeah. And it seems that people do not question stuff as much.
So the self-awareness is not there. The self-awareness is missing. And I've seen that a lot as well. Probably was missing in me as well for a long while. So I totally understand what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So, one thing which I feel is that people think that their problems are very different, but fundamentally human beings have very similar needs and very similar problems. So do you, as a self-help coach, also see this? Do you see and feel that people come for, the problems are very similar across the board? Or is it, it's just everyone has very different landscape of what's going on?
I guess it starts from people addressing their feelings, first of all.
Okay.
Because when you have a problem, it's natural to feel, oh my gosh, it's so... No one knows what it is like.
Yeah.
I feel this and this.
Very overwhelmed with stuff,
And if person learns how to deal with that, and you start looking at it logically, or at least can disassociate from your emotions or deal with your emotions, in this case, you will be able to see that, no, most people have the same problems. It might be different variation of the same problem, but for example, being stuck in a job that you don't like, being stuck with a partner that you actually don't like anymore, or you chose because some other people thought it is amazing partner. Or even choosing a hobby. Oh, I saw it on Instagram. It looks so fun. Why
But then
don't I
eventually
like
it's
it?
not what you want, right? Because a
Yeah.
lot of people are like, hey, I want to travel more, I want to travel more. And then you travel so much and you're like,
And you don't like
maybe
it.
it's just too much. It just looks good on the billboard.
Yeah, I
It looks-
also works as a teacher, and very often I talk about reading, right? It's like one of the same topics that you
Yeah.
talk about. And I ask students, like, do you like to read books? And I can just see the struggle when students feel the need to say yes.
Yeah, everyone is like, yeah, I read books. And
But they
then
don't.
they don't,
They actually
right?
don't read books.
Yeah.
And I have to push them a little bit and say, it's okay to say no.
Yeah,
You don't
that's
have
right. If
to
you,
like
if you read
it.
comics or something else, it's
Yeah, if
exactly.
you read just articles or
Yeah.
if you're into movies, that's a
Yeah,
perfect.
and I've been guilty of
that's
that, you know,
perfectly fine.
because yeah, people ask me sometimes, it's like you're on the spot. Someone is asking you on the spot, oh, so do you love to read? And it's just like a social thing because, you know, like socially no one says I don't like to read.
It's considered as a sign of intellect.
Yeah, and it's considered bad, you know. It's like it's like you didn't go to university, it's the same thing. If I ask you, did you go to school? You'll be like, I went to college because it's
something that is
considered
traditionally
Yeah.
considered a good thing.
Yeah.
I think if you give yourself a try and find your own genre, it probably would work.
Yeah.
You don't have to read necessarily something as hard as about Second World War.
Yeah.
You can choose fantasy.
You can read
it's
comic
really
books.
fun.
You can read Tintin, and that's fine. And you know, like this interesting thing that I was reading. So you know, like humans have the same 60% same DNA as a banana. That's so funny. And like 99.9% of all humans share the same DNA. So given how similar we are, and I think Dalai Lama said it. I was reading a book by him last year that humans are more similar than they're different. But the whole idea of, you know, like government and a lot of society things are to just show that people are very different. Hey, you are very unique. You're very yourself. But when it comes down to actually having conversations, you realize that, hey, deep down, everyone is having very similar problems. And we are very, very similar the way we've evolved rather than, you know, us being very dissimilar.
We are definitely more similar than we are different. And if you will go from country to country, so here in Prague, there are many expats coming here from different countries, different continents, being in different professions. And you can see that most of people are the same. Most of people have the same problems. At least recently, even people of in their 20s, early 20s, they also struggle to find connection. They also look for ways to meet new, better people.
Yeah.
Still struggle with that. I think that when we talk about...
So I have a question for you there.
Yeah.
When you say meeting people, what's your take on dating apps as a way to meet people? I want to hear your opinion.
What do you mean meeting people? Like for dating or just for like friendship?
Do you think they're helpful, or do you think it's more better to meet people the natural way, like how people met, like say 10 years ago, you know, when there was no swipe right, swipe left?
That's double-edged sword. It has its own benefits and downsides.
What's the benefits, you would say?
The benefits, you can meet people from different social circles.
Yeah.
You can meet people from even different countries that came here temporarily.
Yeah.
You can just...
There's a lot of choices. Like choice, voice, you have like a huge base there.
Yeah, you have more choices. On the other hand, the thing is, you need to know how to choose.
Yeah.
So it's the paradox of choice, right? The more
That's
options you have, the less you will be satisfied with your choice.
And even when you make a choice, you're like, hey, is this the right choice? Because you know what? There is like 100,000 more choices out there, or, you know.
That's the problem. It's the illusion of choice.
Yeah.
The reality is only like very small percentage of people actually uses dating apps. And if so, it very much depends on the purpose. So the purpose is very different. So from 100 people on the apps, this is a specific type of people that use dating apps.
Yeah.
Let's start with this.
That's the other thing.
The second thing is that you need to find whatever the next person also wants. So if you're looking for a serious relationship where you fucked up, you screwed. But if you look for something, you know, to explore, to get to know people, dating apps are perfect. Although to find some new good company, and can be friendship or relationship, I would still suggest try to go to themed events.
Okay, so you feel like more personal events where you can actually, and I kind
But
of,
the interests.
yeah, I kind of agree with you because I do find like, things to be pretty flaky on these apps which make you swipe right or left. Like actually being able to go out and meet people in person, especially when there's a common interest associated. Let's say you like to lift. Like I like to lift. I like physical stuff. So it's good to go and meet people who also like similar stuff, So it's like there's an instant connection because you're like, hey, oh yeah. So then you can talk about like fitness, you can talk about workouts. Let's say you like
Okay.
playing chess or...
Yeah, but dating apps, it's about self-representation. And again, how you show yourself, it does not mean that you are that kind of person.
That's the other thing, yeah.
It's the ability of being honest with yourself. Yeah. And I think so this promotion of like selling yourself, promoting yourself.
It is a marketing. It's basically marketing and selling. Because there was this TV show where they showed the people who were most popular on Tinder. And they were not the most good-looking people when they were actually sitting in the interview and they were like, hey, we call these people in because, you're the most popular on Tinder. People were like, hey, they just look like normal people, but their profiles just looked exceptionally good. Yeah. And that's the thing, you can be something, but it's about how you dress yourself up. It's like how much makeup you put on and...
Not necessarily makeup, I would say, but rather good picture, good edited picture.
Exactly, that's what I like. It's makeup of yourself.
Specifically tailored answers that are so vague that everyone can agree with them.
Yeah.
And very often, even on dating apps that give you a lot of parameters, like let's say Bumble.
Yeah.
Some people don't read it. Some people don't care. So, for example, I was in Bumble and I met a guy, and then I study profiles usually. Yeah. And I saw like cisgendered man. He was American.
Okay.
Obviously, after this. And I asked, like, why did you choose? Are you like pro LGBTQ?
Yeah.
And he said, like, I don't care about that. Then I asked, why did you put it on profile?
Yeah.
And he was a bit confused.
Maybe it was just the thing at that point, right? Or he felt like it feels cool or something.
I don't know. I cannot. Maybe he just like, okay, male, something close to that. That's it.
Okay.
You just never know.
Yeah.
The thing is, with predicting people and reading people, if we talk about generalities, it's easy to understand people. But when we talk about specific person, there's so many reasons. And especially dealing with rejection, right? It's so easy to think, oh my God, it's me. It's my fault. Something wrong with me. When the reality is, he might not be that interested into you.
He just might not be
interested, but he knows that it will not work.
Yeah.
He might just found someone better in his opinion.
Yeah. So it's not you. It's not you who's the problem, but people can, and exactly. And it's not just that two people will always get along. It's just that, but a lot of people take it personally that, hey, maybe, it's just something that's off in me. So.
Because it's very often put on a person since childhood.
Yeah.
Right? So,
that's deep
something
stuff.
broken. Yeah. Like, at least, okay, in my family, I'm from Ukraine, so if something was broken and no one knew what happened, usually who's blamed? Child,
okay.
Or maybe a dog if you have a dog.
That's interesting perspective. It's just like imbibed in you the way you grow up that a kid always takes the blame.
And then the same goes in school, right? You failed the assignment, you failed your homework, which is an honest mistake. And it depends also on the teacher. Being a teacher myself, I do understand it's a very hard job. It's emotionally a huge labor, whatever age group you're working with. And sometimes it's just crazy.
Makes things
harder. But the
harder.
worst part of being a teacher, so I had practiced it at school, in Czech school. The worst part of being a teacher is parents. Okay. So we'll move on to the next part. So, as someone who's very self-aware about what's going on around herself or around himself, like what are your top 3 red flags in identifying toxic people? Like what screams to you that, hey, this is not the type of person or type of people that I want to be around? Disrespecting others.
Okay.
Definitely. It's the biggest red flag that you can find.
Yeah.
Even if you're going for a coffee date, right? You will see how he or she reacts to other
people, like,
yes, like waitress maybe, or someone going in the park and being loud. Like some people get annoyed with that, some
so
people
the
not.
reaction,
But the reaction, how they interact with
the
other
others is
people.
more important than the reaction with you, because the reaction with you can also be, like, it can be like, it can be rehearsed, or it can be something that, hey, I got to be nice to this person. But the reaction to the outside environment is very involuntary. You cannot
Yes.
control it. So maybe creating situations where you want to see the other person's reaction. You're like, okay, let's see how he reacts to like a barking stray dog, or, like some lady going crazy on him.
I wouldn't suggest that. Just
Okay.
give the person a chance to do this, because very often it's not the red flag that you will see immediately,
Yeah.
because very often these people, and it's the second red flag, being too flashy.
The second flag is being too flashy. And like, I think a lot of that is also, if the sense of self-worth does not come from inside, that's where you kind of go to the stuff where, hey, I need, say, a fancy Lamborghini.
It depends. Like, it's hard to say, because people can describe their motivations in a different way. But the underlying issue is that they don't feel adequate in like themselves in society, and they want to be flashy, put on it,
just
like,
to get some validation,
just to show it off,
get some validation, sort of.
However, it also very much depends on the culture.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
In Asia, or specifically, let's say in Korea, they have the obsession with beauty, obsession with brands, obsession with being
fancy cars, and
with being born in family that is very, very rich.
Yeah,
they have like this problem with social climbing.
Yeah,
and it's
horrific. And I think that's why you have the movie The Crazy Rich Asians, right? That's the whole point behind the movie. That, like, that's a thing, like getting more stuff, or just like that fancy lifestyle. And I feel like, again, materialism is not bad, because I did take a lot of time just thinking about this philosophically, that, hey, like, maybe we should all just become saints, and, just become super spiritual animals, or just like, you don't need more stuff. But I think a balance between, being materialistic, but also like striking the right balance with being connected with yourself. So wanting something, but still also, being self-aware and being happy in what you have. Like, that balance is very important. And I feel like some societies and some people lose that balance. And you can easily get carried off. It's like a rabbit hole. And you can get easily carried off in the wrong direction. So it's like coming back and centering yourself. I think that's been very helpful for me personally, at least.
I also do agree with it. You need to have balance, as with everything. So whatever question you ask, most probably the answer will be balanced between both extremes. Right. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
But I think with materialism, it's good to have things, to have your needs satisfied, your basic needs. Everything that is extra shouldn't be
at the cost of your needs. Yeah.
Okay, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Also, I think right now materialism came because we lose the quality over quantity very often.
What does that mean? I'm curious.
Quality, so let's say H&M clothes, right? It's not of the best quality. Let's be honest. It's gonna break off, or let's say Shein, right?
Yeah. But can you subjectively tell me that, a $500 Dior T-shirt is of a better quality than a $10 H&M T-shirt? Probably not.
I'm not talking about brands. That's the thing. I'm talking about quality.
Yeah.
So H&M and Dior can be the same quality.
Exactly.
Recently there was a Dior scandal that it also
manufactures the clothes in the same
in China.
Yeah, exactly.
In China.
It's all the psychological game, that, hey, you wear a Dior, so you are better than someone who's wearing
Again,
a $10.
It's being too flashy. What I'm talking about, that we don't know how to choose quality clothes. We don't know what are quality materials, how durable they are.
Yeah.
And so instead of paying attention to small details like how are the buttons sewed, what is the quality of material, let's look like what is it made of, people choose the outside, what it looks like.
That's
the trendy outside. And then
that's a good point.
There is no problem with wearing polyester, but if I have the choice, why don't I choose cotton?
And it's not just in clothes. That's a very interesting point. But I feel like it's in all aspects of life. When even choosing a person, the first thing you do, and I'm guilty of this as well, it's like, okay, how does she look or how does he look? It's like, if you want to make a new friend, it's a lot about, like how he's dressed up and, like, oh, does he feel a certain way or does he look? But the real quality of the person is actually kindness, his core values. And you got to really spend time with the people, because a lot of people who might look great outside might just be shitty people inside. So
That's a very American thing to say that you just said.
But-
Just FYI.
but I personally feel from experiences that, I mean, I've lived in the US for 10 years,
That's
but
the point.
but it's so true, that a lot of things which are shiny on the outside might be really rotten on the inside, and vice versa.
That's the problem. You shouldn't judge the book by its cover.
Yeah.
Is it bad or is it good? The thing is, you should give the choice and options. Usually, the most beautiful women are the loneliest.
And why is that? Why would you say that?
Men are afraid to approach. They think they are not worth.
Of
They
the-
cannot deal with that
They
or
cannot deal
something.
with,
They
like-
think that she is like too much.
Yeah.
The reality is, so you were talking, for men, it's very important what the woman looks like,
Yeah.
right? Trophy wife.
Men are more
it comes-
visual.
Yes.
Yeah.
In Ukraine, we have the saying, the man has to be just a little bit more beautiful than a monkey.
I heard that one before from you.
Yeah, obviously. But the truth is, if you have good qualities, it doesn't matter what you look like.
Yeah.
And I feel that with the pornography, very often the beauty has become standardized. It's the same
That's right.
thing.
It's the same. Yeah.
Like when the idea of what is beauty is very, very restricted
That's right.
to color of your skin, what your eyes look like, what kind of lips do you have,
Yeah.
what kind of I don't know.
No, and that's a very good point you've touched upon, and I think it's all coming from a lot of the beauty industry, because they want women to look a certain way, because that's how they make money. So it's like they have this whole ecosystem set up, and if everyone is running in that ecosystem, then the machine or the person on the top makes the most money, and that's what's driving everyone's perception of beauty, because it's a very subjective thing. It's not math. It's not like 1 + 1 = 2, right? Beauty is super subjective, but exactly, pornography, a lot of stuff on the Instagram, it just drives your perception of what exactly beauty is. And then you got to constructively spend time and years to just re-reverse that and be like, hey, this is not what actual beauty is. This is just the perception they're creating so they can sell more stuff. Now they can sell you lip fillers. Now they can sell you certain stuff to put in your hair. And before you know it, half of a paycheck of a lady is going in just beauty stuff. Because I had this conversation with women, and they're like, some people that I know, they were like, hey, we spent $1,500 just to look good. And I'm like, you look good the way you are. Like, I mean,
Okay.
but there's just like so much superfluous stuff that's added. And then you spend that money, so you keep on working in the economy, and but you're just
Okay, but the thing is, what did this women lead with? So my perception of this is the same for men and women. If you want to look good, you don't need a plastic surgery.
exactly.
You might need to like put off few kilograms like I do. You
Yeah.
might need to have good clothes
Yeah.
that fits you.
Yeah.
And well, about cosmetics, yeah, it is very
I think it's a rabbit hole, and people get too deep into it, because I feel like too much of something, it just takes off the natural beauty. Humans are so beautiful the way they are.
It was natural beauty,
But
that's the scariest.
that's the thing. You need to make men appreciate natural beauty, because there's so much of
Why?
this stuff, where you can't even see the woman. You look at her and it's like the face is fully plastered, and you don't know what the person actually looks like. And you're sleeping with someone,
Do
and
you
you're
think
waking
the
up
man
and
would look at the woman who does not have tons of makeup?
yeah, real
like
men,
in Europe?
real men would, and
What do you mean by real man?
like men who really care about real actual beauty. And that, again, that's the perception that they're creating, that
What percentage of this?
you're
of
not-
this of men?
you're not wearing any makeup, and I think you look gorgeous. So there
I
is
wear makeup.
right now, I mean, it's a little bit, again, it's not crazy, like it's like the whole point, like moderation, right? What you're doing, it's in moderation. It's not like you have shit ton of
You wouldn't understand if I'm wearing shit ton of not
Oh, of
shit
course
ton.
I would. Like, are you kidding with me? Like, if you have like a whole layer of stuff plastered on your face, you have a foundation, and you have your eyelashes done. It leads to a very specific look, very specific. And you can just look at, a man can look at it from a distance and be like, oh yeah, I know what that girl is.
Can they?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I can totally do it, and I know my friends can do it. Like, men are smart.
Okay.
Men are smarter than you think they are. So they can look, and they can be like, yeah, she has a shit ton of
Okay.
makeup.
Okay.
And I'll tell you one thing. not real men, but I feel most men appreciate natural beauty. Like when someone comes up really with a lot of stuff, like lip fillers or, like lips and Botox, men often ask the question, what is underneath this? Because that is what drives, people actually, it's not the stuff that you on the top, but really how gorgeous you are.
I don't know. I'm not a man. I'm
But
not gonna talk
I'm telling you,
but...
based on the discussions I've had with my friends and stuff, that it's people are dying to see what the person actually looks like when all the shit is off, when you're actually sleeping in the bed. Okay, who am I sleeping with? And that's what a lot of people really care about. But maybe the perception that women have is that the way I look when I go out is what matters, but I don't think so. It's
I don't know.
Okay, I'll we'll go.
Yeah, I know about that.
We'll go back to our discussion of toxicity. So we talked about being too flashy, disrespecting or putting other people down. What else comes to your mind?
Being too flashy. Another point that many people might disagree with, but when the person talks about or pursues having more choices as an end goal. What I mean by that, it's good to have to want to be free.
Yeah.
But there is a difference when you want to have more options to choose something good, and another thing is pursuing the possibility to have more choices,
just being addicted
to stay
the options.
With this.
Just being addicted to the options. Yeah.
To put it in an example, dating apps, right? You want to have as many options as possible, but then you're not actually choosing one person. Yeah. You're just staying with this as many options, and you're just trying and picking and choosing.
And you're never happy with the option that you choose, right?
And you will never be happy.
And that goes back to the paradox of choice. Like simply, the more choices you have, the more unhappy you get beyond a certain point, because it just makes it super harder to choose. And then the cost of not having to choose that option subtracts from what you actually choose. So, yeah.
That's I personally hardcore believe that the only solution for all of this in consciousness, meaning choose whatever you want to choose, but stay with it.
Yeah.
Be aware of what you're choosing and why. So this is why when I have many choices, or at least the illusion of many choices, I try to look for 2-3 options that I'm going to actually choose from.
Yeah.
Not trying to go through all 1,000, but choose 1 or 2 that I think might be actually good and stick with them.
That's a good point. And I think it goes beyond just dating. It goes to everything in life. Let's say you're buying a car. Let's say you're picking food or milk at the grocery store, right? I mean, it happened to me so many times. I'll pick like a $7 a gallon box of milk and still not be happy with it because there were so many other choices. So the mind is always like, hey, did I pick the right flavor, or did I pick the right flavor of some product?
You also need to choose your battles. This is another thing. You need to choose where you actually, when your choice actually matters. Because I don't care what kind of milk do I have. I don't.
But let's just say ice cream, or let's just say like chocolate. But subconsciously it also registers. Subconsciously, consciously you might feel like, I don't care about this, but subconsciously it registers somewhere, and you're like, hey, why am I not so happy now? Probably because of, like somewhere it's registering in your mind that, oh, did I make the right choice, or could I have made a better choice? But I agree, like being more self-aware of not going overboard with the number of choices you have.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely.
And that's another thing. The choices create superficial everything. So if you think you can have 10,000 friends, you're unlikely to stick to one person and actually build a relationship. And it goes for career, for example. Oh my gosh, I can become a market expert in 9 months, or I can become investor in 1 month.
Exactly.
And you just might pick and choose, but then at the same time, unless you stick to something and go through struggles with that,
you're not gonna get good at it. No. And that's a very good point. It applies to people, it applies to career, it applies to like fitness as well. If you're like, hey, I can do bodybuilding, I can run, I can do boxing. No, you gotta pick one thing and you just gotta get better at it. Same with people. You gotta pick the people and you just got to go through stuff with them. And that's how you build real friendships, you know?
Yeah.
Not by, hey, today I met this guy, tomorrow I met this guy. Like, you need to have the same people. Like, you need to, I think, and that's something which is missing a lot.
There is just one warning. It does not mean choose the first person and stick with them.
Yeah.
Please just find people that you actually think you would work with.
Yeah.
So, from my personal experience, right, I've always been a loner a little bit, in a sense that I didn't fit into company. And only recently I have found a group of people where I actually feel like myself. Like I can talk about what I want and people will understand and I will not look weird.
Okay.
So you just need to try and choose. And how do you understand that you got into the good company? You can feel like yourself, like you don't need to choose words.
Yeah. And you feel that natural comfort level. You're just sitting with the people and you're yourself. You're yourself and you're comfortable, you know, and that acceptance comes. And funny, I was reading this quote, which was that when you're with the right people, then, you know, you just naturally feel good from the inside and you don't need to pretend to be someone that you're not. So that's definitely...
I think another important thing that before you find these people, you need to accept who you are and be honest with yourself. Because I often found this thing in myself that I should be more outgoing, I should be more social, I should be interested in things that I was not actually interested in. Like, let's say, board games. Fun, social, acceptable thing. But I wouldn't do this every week. It's something that I would do once a month, maybe, just like a fun thing. And until you will not know who you are, until you will not find the things that you're interested in and be able to freely express them, not put on the mask. It's impossible to find people.
No, I think that opens a whole different avenue, and I think maybe that's a separate podcast. But talking about how to be okay with what you are, how to be happy, and how to just be satisfied with who you are as a person. And, you know, you're not weird. It's just that you need to find the right set of people. Because people are like, oh, I'm weird. No, you're not. You just got to find the right set of people, and then you will not feel weird anymore. No one is weird. Like, it's just finding your group.
No. You're looking at it from the wrong perspective.
Okay.
We're all weird, but in a different sense. And this is the same way people say we're all unique, but in a different sense. We're all special, but in a different sense. So I am typical, normal, below average at many things. Like, let's say, sport. Not my cup of tea, definitely. But I'm really good at another thing. And this makes me unique. But also, I don't know, painting. I'm bad at it, but I just enjoy the process. So I'm still going to do this. You know, in this sense.
Makes sense. Okay, so let's move on to the next thing. So working with people, you know, and actually having people express a lot of their inner selves, opening up to you. What are the things that you see people really value? You know, what are the things that really make them happy versus what they show that, you know, like people put pictures of travel, people put pictures of what they bought. But is that what really makes people happy, or?
Usually what makes people happy, it's two things. Having time in nature. I see that actually making people happy, which means also that you should have free time for that.
And having time for yourself, you know, being actually able to go out and explore nature.
But there is one small point. Actually be with yourself, not with your phone.
Oh, that's
so like without phone. Ideally without music, to stay with yourself if you can.
And, you know, I'm guilty of, like, I love looking at trees, and it's something that just started like last year. And I was talking to like my life coach, and I was like, hey, you know, I just go out and I look at trees and it just makes me happy. I don't need anything else. And I look at the veins in the leaves, and I look at there's just so much detail in the trunk of a tree. But the point is, you just need to you just need to look at it. You just need to let everything else go. You know, your phone go, not all the worries. And there's just so much peace in detail, you know.
That's the form of meditation, actually. That's one of the forms of meditation. The thing is, to do that, you need to, A, practice So first of all, how to sit with yourself. And usually this is the hardest thing. I struggle with this as someone who is unfortunately addicted to doom scrolling a little bit.
Oh, yeah. We'll talk about that.
So I feel that when I'm anxious, I start to doom scroll instead of sitting with it and staying with myself.
Yeah.
I feel like physically afraid of this.
Yeah.
But to enjoy the nature, you need to actually put everything away. Another thing that is very important to people is their family and friends.
Interesting. Yeah.
So actually spending time with people.
Yeah.
Physically, like playing board games, talking about something, but actually have human interaction with people that you like, ideally.
So you feel like human interaction and spending time in nature, that's what actually makes people more happy rather than a lot of the stuff which people post online where they're like, and I'm guilty of that as well. Oh, I traveled here. I traveled business class. I bought this fancy Louis Vuitton bag. But why then? What's the psyche there? Why does a lot of that stuff end up on social media rather than, your evenings with friends? Maybe you're just having a casual evening that never ends up on social media. Like, what role is social media playing then if it's not letting people really express things which are bringing them joy? Like you staring at a tree, and I'm again guilty of that. That would never end up on social media. Because
well, it does end up on social media, but the thing is, it's not genuine. Very often, people who post this on social media, at least that's my observation, they're not having fun actually. At the moment, they pretend to have fun. Usually at least when I am having fun, I either don't think about my phone with people.
Yeah.
Or I am taking pictures, but they're not Instagrammy.
Yeah, they're just like, this is real you, right? It's just like...
Yes.
Yeah, it's just like... Because I feel like a lot of people who have like these curated profiles, and I also had one for a long while, and I sat down with myself and I was like, hey, is this a true representation of who I am? And I was like, this is just the peaks of my life. It's like 0.01% of who I am, because I have all these lows and then I have this peak, and I'll put the peak there. And you look at the Instagram or social media, you just look at the peaks and you feel like, wow, this guy has such a great life. But trust me, I've sat down with a lot of the people and they're like, hey, you look at the peaks, but look at the lows. And the peaks are just like, it's just like 5 minutes of your day. But the rest of 23 hours and 55 minutes,
very often
that can be hell.
Very often it's not even that people on Instagram put their actual highs, it's that they create this highs.
That's
in a sense that they fake it.
And I think that's again, I haven't done that, but I agree. Like I have seen some of that stuff, I've heard some of that stuff, and I feel like that is taking it to another level. That is like getting validation from outside, which is I think a part of all of us growing up, like as teens, like we're very narcissistic. Yeah. But at some point you got to let it go and you got to be like, I don't care about, how people perceive me. Same thing about this podcast. Like, I don't care how it goes. It's just like me having a one-on-one, real, genuine conversation with someone who I found to be pretty interesting. Now, how the world perceives it, really, I am not much worried about it. We'll see. Like, I think just letting yourself go of the perception and not needing that validation.
Yeah, definitely validation. I think the validation that we're seeking, it's not even from outside. It's rather that we don't feel the validation from the inside.
Yeah.
So we try to find it outside. And with the social media growing, I feel like, it's obvious that social media promotes narcissism and self-promotion at every single thing. And at least with my generation, right? We grew up with at least personally, I got my phone at 7 and smartphone maybe at 14.
Yeah.
Right? So I had pretty good childhood before the internet.
Yeah.
And the onset was in those critical teenage years.
Yeah.
And I still feel like this generation we compare ourselves not to a small group of people in our town or with our friends.
The vertical comparison.
But to the whole world that shows tops, highs, peaks, and fakes.
Exactly. And then you feel that, that sense of validation, that self worthiness goes away, because you're always comparing, no matter how good you are. And this is something I personally experienced. No matter how fit you are, no matter how good you look, there's always someone better than you. And that's the biggest problem. It's enabling this vertical comparison. I think Mark Manson was talking about it. And there is just like, it'll never be enough. No matter how good you get, there will always be someone more better than you. And the algorithms are so good. They're so damn good at finding that one person who's better than you and just showing him in your feed. And then that's how you buy more stuff. That gets you to like, hey, what do I need to buy so I can get to that level? And it's a never ending cycle.
It is ending cycle. You just need to make an effort for this.
Yeah, I mean, if you get stuck in the loop, it's like a for loop that never ends. I mean, that's a very techie thing to say, but you need to put an end in the loop and be like, hey, I got to exit this loop.
Yeah.
So it's like a computer bug that you're stuck in it and the loop just executes.
Yeah, definitely. I think that the most important thing actually goes all the way from Franklin's time, so from the onset of America.
Yeah.
That being humble actually pays you a lot.
Yeah.
So, for example, Franklin used to point out that there is nothing better you can, like, if you want to make a person like you, show them that you need something from them, or I think show that you are imperfect. People actually try to show how perfect they are, but you know what happens when you show how perfect you are? People starting getting jealous, or people dislike you.
Yeah.
So when you show just a little bit of some kind of struggle or flaw, people are actually more likely to start accepting you.
And that's very interesting. So like humility, kindness,
yes,
being vulnerable, like these are the things, and again, these are the things which really help others like you.
Rather showing the rough corners if you have ones, not trying to put this perfect ideal picture of it.
Yeah.
This is why bloggers try to do that. So they try to show, oh, we have such high highs, but we also need to show that we sometimes struggle, like our baggage was lost or something in that sense.
And that's very superficial as well. Like the baggage being lost is not the real.
Just an example, it can be something deeper, but
then also just the construct of social media itself, it doesn't support you showing your lows, because think about it, human beings haven't evolved as creatures to show their lows to like millions of people. We have evolved to live in tribes of 200 people, like from the last 2 million years till basically a few thousand years ago, we lived in tribes of 200 people. So we showed our lows and our highs to only a small tribe. It's only now that you're being pushed to show these highs and lows to say 1 million people. And then the response is very natural, because that being which is not trained or psychologically it hasn't evolved to show the lows to these millions of people, it's showing the highs because that's what it feels good about. The lows, no. I mean, you want me to show you my lows and to 1 million other people? I mean, we haven't evolved for that. And I think it's a lot of the answers to the questions we are asking lie in what have we evolved to do? Are we evolved to sit on social media?
Yeah.
Or go out in nature and, you know, bike and hike and hunt, you know, like hunter-gatherers. So, okay. So tell me about one habit in 2024 that you adopted which has significantly changed your life. Like something, you know, which as a life coach, you would recommend to others.
Maybe a realization. It's not a habit, but rather something that I noticed and try to remind myself a lot. You cannot have it all at one period of time. You cannot be a perfect robot who woke up at 6 and will meditate, journal, and do this for the whole year. Yeah. It's impossible. I did this for a few months, then my thesis came, it's a rough patch, and I'm cutting myself some slack in other areas.
Yeah.
Let's say, ordering more food, like ordering takeouts, or doomscrolling in the evening, or sleeping in sometimes. It depends, whatever you choose. But rather,
so just the acceptance of being who you are, just being happy and accepting yourself for who you are has brought you.
That's not who you are. No. Be kind to yourself in the moments of lows, and appreciate your highs rather like this. Because usually when people are in the low, at least this is what I did, they try to push themselves. It's like feedback loop from hell, like Mark Manson said, right? You have anger issues, and when you become angry, you start feeling more angry with yourself that you are angry.
Yeah.
Or when you're anxious, you start being anxious about being anxious. So just
and it makes it worse. It makes it worse, right? Because, and I think I'm very guilty of that. Like the way I'm wired, as I don't know, maybe it's the way I've been wired growing up, but if I'm in the lows, I'll push myself. It's like, you're a car that's already damaged, and instead of giving yourself time to heal, you're pushing yourself more, and that just puts you in a worse low. So I think like being kind to yourself, giving yourself time, and just accepting that, life cannot be only highs. Lows are, and just like a regular day is a very normal part of it. I think for me personally, it took me a while to accept that. But
well, yeah, exactly. So my recipe, sometimes I just wake up and I know the day's not gonna be good.
Yeah.
My recipe is accept that it's not gonna be good and just be kinder to yourself this day. Let's say allow yourself I don't know, Starbucks if you don't usually take it, or something more sweet, because not, especially for women, not every day is the same.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just need to accept it and let it go. And it makes a day 1,000 times better.
Yeah. Just being kind to yourself, and just because, again, you only have one body and one mind. So, and there's only so much you can push it. So just being kind and being humble and accepting yourself for who you are is a big part of happiness, I would say.
Yes, to be fair, in here we were talking about general tendencies, right? But sometimes it's hard to know the situation. Sometimes the person has no other choice when being during the low to push it higher. They don't have time to heal. In this case, you need to find something that will support you. For anxious people, what works for me is journaling, writing down my thoughts, 1 page, non-stop trying to write it. As I'm a person who has internal monologue, I try to, actually in this dialogue, to hype myself up if it works, or be kind to myself if needed.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point. And what I've seen is like accepting yourself for who you are creates a true moment of peace, and a true moment of happiness eventually. So I know we talked about doom scrolling before, but and again, we are all guilty of that, and I have made a conscious effort to not do it. Like I'll see people in the elevator, I'll see people in subway or on a train, and I'm like, man, like it's like eating Pringles, or it's like eating a bag of Cheetos or some of the junk food. Like, what are some of the scientific effects of that? And what are your thoughts on doom scrolling?
Okay, doom scrolling, it's a very, very bad habit that it has influence on each and every one of us.
Yeah.
It just uses the weaknesses in our dopamine system.
That's right.
Easy dopamine. I think this is right now established. It's not something new. Doom scrolling is very dangerous. I think it might be even
more dangerous than smoking cigarettes.
Okay, so doom scrolling. There is a big difference between smoking cigarettes and doom scrolling. So doom scrolling, usually you do this alone. You do this with for a long periods of time, and sometimes you don't know how to stop. And you feel bad afterwards.
Yeah.
With cigarettes, very often people smoke socially, so they meet new people, they talk to new people when they're smoking. If you've been outside of bars, people that are smoking, they're always together and might talk. Second
I meant like
thing,
the side effects on your body.
limitation.
Like side effects on your body of like doom scrolling versus maybe smoking are very similar.
Hard to make correlation because it's very different. I would say smoking, definitely bad. But what can you do? You need to choose your battles. You cannot be perfect machine.
No, I totally agree with you that. But again, like the whole point, leads to that tech neck of, like you just bending forward, anxiety, depression, a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
So, and again, I think being self-aware about a lot of this stuff, that, hey, I'm just, I'm scrolling right now. I've been scrolling for 10, 15 minutes. I think the thing is people get lost in it.
Yeah.
I think what you were saying earlier, set a timer of 10 minutes and be like, hey, that's it. Once the timer ring, I am done with this.
Yeah.
And, and I think that's a good way of bringing you back to just your regular life and just being self-aware overall.
Yeah, you just need to create good habits that would be your support system in times of crisis. Because as I said, when the low times come, and they will always come, no matter how high you are,
that's right.
You need to have support system that will help you to go through this. So when the stressful times come, I usually try to resort to doom scrolling as avoidance of thinking.
Yeah, it's your way of getting out that anxiety and,
coping mechanism.
Yeah.
So what works for me? Okay.
But what are some other alternate coping mechanisms which, come to your mind, which could actually be positive in nature and don't give you that cheap?
Okay. Wait. I'm going to show you how to maybe limit it. So the first, you could set the timer on your phone that lets only like 1 hour in this application. The second thing that works for me is during that time when I have free time, set the timer. So like 5 minutes of doom scrolling, okay, 10 minutes also, but you need to make it a habit so that every time it stops, you actually put your phone away.
Yeah.
Coping mechanisms, coming back to this, you need to find 2 things that you enjoy. So in this 5-10 minutes, you, instead of doom scrolling, you can listen to music, you can just try to walk outside.
Yeah.
Depends on your area, but let's say in Prague, going outside, it's actually a nice sight, nice view.
Architecturally very beautiful, and the nature is amazing as well.
Yeah, exactly. Unless you're in some very specific area, yes. You could just go drink some water.
Yeah.
Just try to do more movement, maybe. I don't know. If you have the opportunity, 10 sit-ups.
That's right. Just get up and move.
Just try to find something that you think that makes you feel better afterwards.
Yeah.
And this is how you actually understand that you're doing a good thing. You feel better afterwards, not before.
That's right. Because a lot of the stuff that you scroll through these days, it's not very informative content as well. It's the goal of that content is that it's delivered so as to make you stick to it. They want that stickiness, Like even when I personally make content, like what I hear from a lot of editors and, like social media managers, they're like, oh, we need these hooks because then the people will be addicted. Then I think, and I'm like, is that the reason why I'm making this stuff? Am I making it because I want to get people addicted? I'm like, not really. Like my personal goal is to get the right information out there. Now, I'm not going to make hooks to get you addicted to that stuff because it's not true to myself. It's not, who I am, and I'm not trying to like sell stuff. But you need to understand a lot of the content that you're going through, it's just to get you hooked to it. So it's very specifically delivered to exploit the biases in your thinking, the way you think. And so before you're just like, you're like hooked to stuff and it's not actually good for you. It's not giving you any good information. Maybe just sit down and ask yourself after 10 minutes of scrolling, like, was this helpful? Did I learn anything good? Or was it just confirmation bias, which social media and the algorithms already know, and they're showing me that same stuff to, reinforce the confirmation bias. So I
have problem with this.
Keep on.
Because you do this afterwards. So this might work with habits that are a little bit physical, that you might pre-teach it. With the phone, it will not work because sometimes there will be something useful that you would like to remember. But it's important to go into this with maybe some intention or limitation beforehand. Because afterwards, I can think whatever I want. But then in my head, there will be no light bulb will turn on before I start doom scrolling because it's such an automatic reaction.
Yeah, that's right.
So you need to concentrate on why do you do this, on your triggers.
What triggers it? That's right. The whole trigger, action, reaction, habit loop.
Yeah.
You need to kind of break that habit loop. And I think maybe we'll dwell upon that in the next podcast where we'll get into more into like psychology and stuff. But like actually the triggers, what is triggering you to do something and then how to break that habit loop. That's exactly a very good point. What's a really good book that you read in 2024 which you would want to recommend to the audience to really help themselves?
Depends on the topic, of course. I had to read a lot of British literature.
Okay, that's interesting.
Okay, so if you want to change your habits, it's something like self-help.
Yeah.
I would really suggest go into Tiny Habits by BJ Fogg.
Okay.
Really good book about learning how habits work and what can you do to change your habits or develop new ones starting tiny. And it actually includes the preparation for the low.
Okay. Oh, okay. Okay.
So
that's interesting.
Preparation for the low.
Laws of life.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And how to deal with that.
Okay. I should add it to my list.
Yeah. And I guess the second one that I know you asked for one, but that was like professional. This is like something that was eye-opening for me. I found this book called Philosophy.
Okay.
It's for teenagers, a book how to deal with failures and how to accept your mistakes.
Okay.
Which I think sometimes we all definitely need.
Okay. Interesting. And I mean, again, and habits, I think that's the big part. I feel like to get somewhere in life, setting up those habits and compounding on them over time, that's the fundamental way to achieve success. Like, because a lot of people have this perception that, oh, I gotta win the lottery, or I gotta, do some things. There'll be this one day and I'll do something great that day and I'll be successful. It's just about the right habits. And the habits, when you let them compound over time.
And the grind.
Yeah, and then exactly like going over that habit again and again is the grind, because the point is, a lot of people will, let's say, I want to meditate, but they'll quit in a week, then someone will quit in a month. But the guy who gets through that valley of disappointment and gets through the grind, like to what you said, beyond a year, 2 years after that, that's when you get the dividends. So like that's the grind, like sticking with that habit and just like going through with it.
And even you said sticking to the habits, but it's also important to remember that you need to stick to your choice and choosing things that will bring you happiness long term, not short term.
That's
right.
And then again, goes back to how we evolved, because humans have been wired, because as hunter gatherers, we never thought long term. Our goal was, how should we feed ourselves tomorrow? So it's a very short term thinking. So these are all biases in human thinking, right? Because your goal is not that, hey, will I have meat in 5 years? Like it's immediate needs. So that's why we have this short-term thinking where, the focus is like, hey, the short-term benefit. But I think we need to get away from that a little bit and start working on things which will bring us like long-term happiness and establish those habits. I was reading that book by Naval, and he said all he does these days is just like break the bad habits and set up right habits. And I feel like I spend a lot of my day just doing that as well, like knowing what are my bad habits, get out of them, and just setting the seeds for the right habits, and then just like let them grow, and you're good.
Yeah. Just as someone being in a busy part of my life where I don't have the opportunity, it's okay not to do that. You need sometimes to go through periods when you just need to survive or go through them. So it's okay sometimes to have setbacks, because it's not linear progress.
That's right.
There are going to be setbacks.
There's going to be, It's like the stock market. It's not going to keep on going up all the time. It's like so interesting how the progression of your life, the progression of the stock market, the progression of, working out, they are very similar. Nothing is linear. Like, I think my dad told me this one day. He's like, life is not linear. And I was like, what is he saying? And now I feel it. Like, everything will have a pull down. You'll get injured in the gym. The stock market is going to crash. Your life is going to have, setbacks. So, but eventually it's going to grow. Like, if you're doing the right stuff, like, it's going to be a positive slope. Yeah. It's not going to be a negative slope, right? Yeah. Okay, so I think that was great, Yulia, like talking to you about some stuff. And I think we'll wrap it up. Yeah, I appreciate you coming in today. It was a great chat. Yeah.
It's nice seeing you.
Yeah.